Welcome to our video lecture that includes both parasites and protozoa. So we're going to outline a couple of differences between parasitic organisms and also the classification of protozoa. So parasites you might have heard about before, protozoa probably not, but we're going to learn about both today. So here's a chart for you of some examples of our parasites. So parasites can be helminthes, which are worm categories. They can be protozoa, which we're going to learn about in a second. They could be fungi, like athlete's foot. They could be prokaryotes, the bacteria that causes leprosy. They could be viruses, like HIV, or they could be progens or proteins, like CDJ. So we have two broad classifications. Parasites can be either living or cellular or acellular, non-living. We learned in previous lectures that viruses, while they are questionably living, they have a lot of living characteristics because they need a host to produce. They are not actually considered living. And a protein is just a protein, so it is also not living. But all the other four categories are. So here we start with parasites. So I have a couple examples for you that you may or may not know. So a tick is actually a parasite. Lice is a parasite. This is a duodenum, and that's a hookworm. That is a parasite, so that would be the egg of it. And toxoplasma, or the Gandhi parasite, and that is actually caused by ingesting, or one way or another getting cat feces inside of your mouth. So if you didn't wash your hands after you changed the cat litter or something like that, you might end up with a nasty parasite. So we're going to look at parasites a little bit more in depth. There's a video that I'm going to play in class for you if you're in class. If you're not in class, I posted these links for you on the website so that you'll be able to watch them on your own. Taking a second though, there are three types of parasites specifically outlined by the CDC. So the protozoa that we talked about, the helminths, which are the worms like leeches, flukes, and tapeworms, and the ectoparasites, which include blood-sucking arthropods like mosquitoes or ticks. So what is a parasite? A parasite is any organism that receives what it needs to survive from a host or another organism. Parasites can be harmful to the host, or the host is unaffected by the parasite, but the host will never ever benefit from the relationship, and most likely parasites are harmful. So a leech is an example. I'm going to show you some pictures in the next coming slides, and I want you to tell me which one is the host and which one is the parasite. So in this case, the leech is our parasite, while the human is the host. The human is definitely not benefiting from the leech. They are used sometimes in medicine for an idea of blood cleansing. They are used sometimes today still. It was very, very common back in the Middle Ages and before technology really advanced for doctors to come in and try to heal a sickness with leeches. It's not as practiced today, but some people do still do it. So here we have some lice. So which would be the lice on a human head? So which would be the host and which would be the parasite? In this example, the lice is the host, the lice is the parasite, and the human is actually the host. Here we have, and you've learned about it you will learn about it in the video, we have a fungus and an ant. So the fungus is that stalk coming out of the ant right there, and that would indicate to you hopefully that the fungus is the parasite and the ant is the host. Actually, and you'll learn about this hopefully in the video too, it's a really wicked, nasty fungus parasite that actually hijacks the brain of the ant and makes the ant move in such a way that when this fungus does grow out of its skull, it will be at the most apt place to be able to spread its spores and reinfect other individuals. So this parasite actually controls the mind of the organism that it infects. Here we have a plant, and I'm sorry I can't remember this plant's name, but the flowered plant is actually the parasite, and the host is whatever plant it has decided or grown upon. There, in there you can't see it very well, but the host will actually grow little roots into, or the parasitic organism plant will actually grow little roots into the host, taking the nutrients and eventually killing the plant. This is, let me get the name right for you. This is Plasmodium. So it is the protozoa parasite that is found inside of mosquitoes that actually causes malaria. So this is actually a 2-for-1. So a mosquito on a human. The parasite is the mosquito. The host is the human. Plasmodium, on the other hand, when it is transferred from a mosquito to a human, it is actually the parasite, and then the host would be the human. So those two parasites are actually intertwined a little bit, and together wreak havoc on humans, just a little. Just kidding. It's actually, there's some statistics, about 6,000 people die per year of malaria, so it is actually a pretty deadly disease that we are trying to get under control. This is, if you can't recognize it, it is the thing that during the holidays you would kiss your significant other under. This is mistletoe, and mistletoe is actually a parasitic organism, a plant that feeds off of the original plant or the tree, and will eventually, if it spreads all over the tree, will kill it. So the parasite in this case is the mistletoe, and the host is the tree. There are two types of parasites. We have ectoparasites and endoparasites. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure you can read that. So ecto, that word means outside. So outside parasite, a parasite living outside the host. In my little example here, see my parasite is outside of the cat. Endoparasite is a parasite living inside the host. With my little diagram here, my parasite is clearly inside of the cat. So they can live either outside, so like a leech on the outside, or inside like a tapeworm or some of our protozoas, right? Let's do some more examples, just like we did identifying the host and the parasite. Is this endo or ecto parasitic organism? The lice is actually an ecto, right? Because it's on the outside of a human. The fungus actually started growing inside of the ant, and now it is outside. So depending on which way you look at it, it was endo and now it is ecto because it's outside of the organism and actually kills the ant. Well, lice would not kill us. It's very gross, but it won't kill us. But this fungus does actually kill the host. Here we have the mystery plant again and the original plant. This is an ectoparasite. It's growing outside of the organism. And then malaria. So if we do the mosquito, malaria and the mosquito. So the mosquito is an ectoparasite because it's on the outside of the human. And the Plasmodium, that protozoan I talked about that causes malaria, is an endoparasite because it is inside of the organism. And lastly, mistletoe is considered ecto because it grows outside of the plant or tree that it infects. Outside, ecto, endo, inside. And now if you will continue moving on, we're going to talk about the protozoa. Let me just say a few more things about parasites. So we have this thing, or the CDC does, the neglected tropical diseases, and these affect the poorest of the populations in the tropics. They are parasites that are existing because of health conditions or living conditions there down in the impoverished countries near the equator. Habitat, most of the parasites that we do have, they are found in tropical or subtropical regions. They thrive in the warmer weather. You can transmit parasites through the blood, through animals, through food, through water, through insects. There's many, many ways to get parasites. Most likely with like tapeworms, you eat them in your food and as eggs, and then they grow in your stomach. And to test for parasites, you can do a fecal test. So they'll test your poop. You can have a blood test, an X-ray, an MRI, a CAT scan, or a colonoscopy or endoscopy. But anyway, moving on to our protozoan. So protozoan are single-celled protists. We've got some examples right here for you. They're microscopic, so most likely you will not see one of these with your naked eye, but they can grow to be about, they can grow centimeters in length, some species. Other species are as small as 1 micrometer. Here's an example, a nice introduction of protozoa for you. You can watch it. You can find the links on our Canvas site. And there's an example of one moving for you. So they're not really an animal, but they are single-celled organisms that have animal-like behaviors, such as movement and predator action. So they were called in the past one-celled animals, but that's not true anymore. We don't classify them as animals. They're in their own classification system. So they're animal-like, but not animal. They were first introduced or first observed pretty well and documented in 1818. Protists, they're single-celled protists. So a protist is anything that can't make their own food, a protist is anything that's not an animal, a plant, or a fungi, so it's kind of a catch-all category. And these, they're heterotrophic because they can't make their own food. They're not autotrophic. They don't possess the ability to do photosynthesis. I've got another cool, fun song for you. You won't actually be able to do the Ed puzzle, but here is an awesome song about protozoans. And then, mostly, so I talked about their size, but the habitat, most protozoans are actually found in wet environments, so they can be found in all types of water, salt, fresh, or brackish, and they're also found in moist environments like soil. They're classified based on their movement, so we're going to talk a little bit about how they move. I hope you like my Madagascar transition here, like I forget the raccoon's name, or I don't even know, maybe he's a lemur, but he likes to move it, and so do our protozoans. They move, they have 3 different ways of movement. This is the very first, cilia on the cell. They're the hair-like structures, so cilia here is actually all lining these cells, and they kind of wave, and that causes the cell to be able to move. So cilia are hair-like structures. There are usually many cilia. They're not very long, as opposed to flagella, which is one or two, sometimes a little bit more, but they're very long. They are tail-like structures, so the singular form of this is the flagellum. But here you can see that this organism, or this might be a bacteria, but the flagella are actually very long, and these whip back and forth like a tail that causes the organism to be able to move. So cilia, many cilia. Flagella, not as many. You don't need as many, they're larger structures. And the very last way that these organisms move is called, they form a structure called a pseudopod, and this is an extension of the cytoplasm. And for this, I want you to think about a big blob, kind of like flubber, if you've ever seen flubber, but just a big blob of goo kind of moving along, like pulling itself. So it would throw out part of its cytoplasm and pull the rest of it towards it. It would throw out more parts of its cytoplasm and pull the rest of it towards it. And this is how they actually move. This is how amoebas move, and other quote-unquote famous protozoan. Some protozoan that you might know is the Plasmodium, which I mentioned before when we were talking about parasites. That's actually the protozoa that causes malaria. And another example, which is less common, is Gardaeus. That's the disease. It's caused by Gardea lamblia, and it's when a human is infected, it causes diarrhea, which, if you didn't know, was a giant killer back in the day, right? Because you can't stay hydrated when you have diarrhea. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Here's a brief check your knowledge here. So A, B, C, which way are they moving? So A, cilia, B, pseudopod, C, flagellum. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Don't forget to take a picture of the notes that you've copied, and also please view the videos. They are for your own, to help you through the knowledge, maybe if I didn't explain it very well, or maybe you just need a quick refresher. Have a great day, guys.